Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. For the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk for America.
Yeah, yo, it's game time, ain't no messing around. Huddle Sports Network, the best in town. From NFL rumors to the latest trends, we got all your sports, just tune in, my friends. Catch us on Roku, Fire Stick, take your pick. Facebook, YouTube, where the action's slick. Daily shows that drop like a bomb. From 10 to 11, it's Ken and Ken, stay calm. Huddle up, catch the vibe, feel the rush. Get your news, get your fills in the clutch. Over 27 podcasts, we breaking it down. Join the team, Huddle Sports, wear the crown. Live every weekday, it's how we roll. Lions Talk with Jeremy B, we taking a stroll. From 11 to 12, don't miss a beat. We break down the game, make the info sweet. The Daily Huddle Podcast, noon to 1. CST Zone, we're just having fun. Toss your doubts, we bring the facts. Tune into the Huddle.
And we're back. Good morning, Jack, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Mac and Jack Show with Jack and Sonia. Jack, how was your weekend?
My weekend was fine watching Game 7 of the NBA Finals.
And that's where we will start, even though we got some more NBA big news. I don't know which of those news is bigger. This team is the first time they've won this championship.
Oh, no. I mean, that's the biggest news. The two big stories, obviously, were the NBA Finals Game 7 to crown an NBA champion. And right before that, the Kevin Durant to the Houston Rockets deal took place. So breaking that deal down, which we're going to do on this show, I mean, that's big NBA news. And of course, the Giannis situation as it unfolds later on, whether or not Milwaukee's going to trade him, not trade him. It's been a lot pretty quiet on the Giannis front, but to the game yesterday, one of the franchises was going to win an NBA championship for the first time, either OKC or the Indiana Pacers. And you kind of sentimentally, in a way, were hoping it was the Indiana Pacers because they've been around a bit longer than OKC. And people forget OKC actually transitioned over from the Seattle Supersonics. And the Supersonics had won an NBA championship. The Indiana Pacers won an ABA championship, and we shouldn't discount those championships, the ABA titles, because the ABA they won a Mickey Mouse League. It was a really good league, but somehow historically, we don't count that when we think the amount of rings a player has, a franchise has. We don't really credit the ABA. For example, Dr. J, he won one NBA title with the Philadelphia 76ers, but we don't hear about the two he won with the Nets. With the Nets, believe it or not. No one associates Dr. J as being a Net, but he won two titles with the Nets. And when the ABA was in existence, they would have been able to compete with the NBA. They weren't as good as the NBA, but they would have been able to compete with the NBA, held their own. That's all I'm saying. But last night's game, the big story happened early in the game, obviously, with Tyrese Halliburton, going down with the injury. And did that change the game? Would the outcome have been any different? I seriously doubt it. He got off to a great start, but unless you think he was going to score 75 points, he was going to cool off inevitably. He was sky high in the beginning. He hit 3 of his 5 shots. Great start. But, players who start out that quick, they usually are always going to run out of steam at some point, late on in the game. And it changes the dynamic of the game too. I mean, because TJ McConnell came in the second half and he was sensational for a while. And had Halliburton been healthy, McConnell doesn't get that time. He doesn't get to freelance the way he did. He doesn't get to make the shots he did. People have got to understand that. But I don't think either team played that well, Sonia. I really don't. I mean, the Pacers played well in the first half. Then in the second half, they're just standing around on offense. There was no continuity. There was no movement. There was no leadership. Obi Toppin, no points the whole game. I mean, what? I mean, where was he? I mean, in this big game 7, I'm not pinning the loss on him. Don't get me wrong. I'm not pinning the loss on any one particular player. The Pacers had a great season. It's very difficult in game 7, to win at OKC. Even SGA, we're lauding SGA this morning. It's what a super game. He played this and that. Yeah, he played a wonderful game running the offense, but his shooting was dreadful. He was 8 for 27. Don't tell me, well, SGA got 29 points. That used to drive me crazy with Mac. He'd go over the box scores and he'd say, well, so-and-so chipped in with 28 points. And I say, yeah, he shot 8 for 30. So why are we giving him any credit and even mentioning him? But SGA did a good job running the offense. I think Holmgren played an outstanding game defensively. It's a big difference maker for OKC. And OKC had that spurt in the third period, where they kind of pulled away. And before you know it, the lead's up to 20 points. And even though Indiana's been known to be the comeback kids, you thought maybe they'll cut into this lead, but it would be a bridge too far, and it was.
Good morning to you, Brent. Yeah, let's back up here just a second, Jack. Something you said at the beginning of your spiel here. We don't really give credit with the ABA. It's kind of akin to the NFL. The Chicago Bears have more than one ring, and a lot of people don't know it unless they actually know Chicago's history, by being from there, or if they have the honor of attending a game like I actually did at Soldier Field. And I was shocked to see all the references to championships because I was like, no, the Bears only have one ring. They were world champions before there was the official forming of the NFL and the Super Bowl, I should say.
They won 5. They won a few years before the Super Bowl took place.
Yes, they did.
Chicago Bears won an NFL championship. They beat the New York Giants 14-10.
Yep, they did. They did. That was definitely one of those big games. And so it's the same thing with the NBA, not giving that due. The ABA is kind of like if you don't know the history. We say that about a lot of things. Good morning to you, Rochelle. We say that about a lot of things. If you don't know the history, you don't have the same appreciation. And a lot of people don't know that OKC was once the Supersonics. I wonder today, because Supersonics fans to this day, you see them sometimes appear on some of our shows and actually comment about not having the Supersonics. I wonder if they actually would still, be happy that OKC won, or if they're feeling some sense of, true betrayal at this point. Like, hey, this could have been the Supersonics had the team remained in, Seattle. Let's do a small breakdown here. Good morning. Yes, Brent says, yep. And not everyone knows the Lions have 4 NFL. He's being funny here, but
but the Lions with ancient history wasn't even close to the Super Bowl era.
Yes, totally different there, Brent.
To answer your question, I think it means nothing to the Seattle fans at all. OKC winning, there's no continuity because they didn't take the name the Seahawks with them. Okay, I mean, look, the
Supersonics.
Baltimore Colts became the Indianapolis Colts, but the Baltimore got ahead of franchise in the Ravens. I don't think it means a thing to the fans in Seattle. If anything, I would think they'd be resentful. And that's a good question. I mean, why Seattle? And I don't mean to get into this because let's talk about the game, but Seattle doesn't have an NBA franchise, but they have a Major League Baseball and an NFL franchise.
Yeah.
Why they're not big enough to have the NBA one, but that's a story, for another time. But with the game yesterday, I mean, I think it came down to OKC just getting like 17 more, shot attempts,
It was a big
basically.
difference when so 103-91, of course, the final score. That game looked totally different in the second half than it did in the first half, because even after Tyrese Halliburton went down earlier in the first half, the team seemed to be able to sustain at least a little bit, Jack. Like they kind of kept up. It was like a couple of points here difference. They were still in the game. After the half, when that team came out, the latter part of that third quarter is when I'm gonna be honest, I turned the game off, because that game started to get away from them really fast. When they noted that it was the largest lead that the Thunder had the entire game, it literally, just like you said, Obi Toppin came off the bench, taking his jersey off like he was about to really do something, taking his jacket or whatever covering he had over his jersey, took it off and tossed it back like he was about to do something. And I was like, okay, great. Here comes Obi Toppin. We really are about to get something started. And it was a complete dud. I think that team put so much into game six. I think they literally ran out of gas at this point. There was no type of resolve. They hung in there as long as they possibly could for the first half, but the second half clearly belonged to the Thunder. And even though the fourth quarter rally to try to come back was a valiant one, it was still, they never came close to really even making it a formidable game anymore. Thunder definitely finishing the season with 68 regular season wins and 84 total wins for the season, tying their 1996-97 Chicago Bulls for third most in any season. And of course, this is the franchise's second championship, like Jack mentioned earlier. The first being in 1979 as the Seattle Supersonics, before we had what we have now as the NBA championship.
Well, the first one. No, let's separate them. I mean, they came from Seattle. They went to
Yeah.
OKC. They were a new franchise with OKC. I mean,
Yeah. Tyrese.
I understand what you're saying. You're not wrong, Sonia. You're not wrong. I understand what you're saying. But let's call this the first title. Not
Yeah.
they weren't called the Thunder when they were in Seattle. They were called the Seattle Supersonics. They're now
This is
called the
true.
Oklahoma City Thunder. That's their first title. I think how the game unfolded when Halliburton went out with the injury, and Halliburton, give him full credit. I mean, he came out blazing. He wanted to set a pattern very quickly. Hit 3 or 5 shots, hit three pointers. Got what 9 points in 7 minutes. He wasn't going to sustain that. Maybe for a while longer he would have been hot, but eventually when you come out blazing like that, you kind of run out of steam. I mean, but we'll never know what would have happened had he been in the game. You never know for sure. Could it have made a difference? It maybe absolutely would have. But in the first half, the Pacers pulled together on the injury. When he got injured, they pulled it together and they were very effective. But sometimes you expend a little more mental and physical energy when a star player goes out, that you can keep it going for a while, but not over a long period of time like the whole game. Listen, let's recall when Michael Jordan had to sit in game 6 of the finals when the Bulls were playing the Portland Trailblazers. The Bulls rallied and they were better when Jordan was out. They came back and won the game with Jordan sitting on the bench for the most part. What happens, units come together, but what happened in the second half finally, it was kind of like fatigue set in. I don't mean so much physical fatigue, but mental fatigue and execution. And it was inevitable too that the Thunder would put their foot a little bit on the accelerator, and would the Pacers be able to stay with them. But you look at McConnell, I mean, the way he was playing, the little guy, taking command, taking it to the basket, scoring. But the Pacers were no longer a 3-point shooting threat, too. So percentage wise, you lose that little edge of getting the extra point. And also, McConnell was trying to act as an everything, a scorer and as a point guard. And his passes, they would come from short range. They weren't spacing the floor, the Pacers, and the turnovers. It was just sloppy on the Pacers' part. They just didn't play well, in the second half. And OKC was better. They weren't great, but they were good defensively underneath, some blocks, rebounds, and they got it done. They got it done, and you felt for Halliburton when you looked at the picture of his mother and father and kids backstage. After outside the locker room. They showed that during the game actually too. But then you think of Halliburton's dad running on the court and taunting Giannis. And then you think Tyrese Halliburton himself giving a choke sign to the Knicks. And I'm very sympathetic about his injury, extremely sympathetic. Don't get me wrong. That's the last thing you want to see. But, we hear the commentators saying, oh, how loved he is, what a wonderful guy he is, which he very well might be a great person. But between him and his dad, their conduct left something to be desired in these playoffs. Okay, it's not a reflection on how good a person him and his dad might be, the good people they might be. But I'm just talking about their conduct during these playoffs. Just wasn't proper. But this injury, I feel for him because it's going to carry over into next year, perhaps. And he was
Achilles, which is a whole year. An Achilles injury is a whole year of healing. So that's not even. I wonder if
confirmed Achilles. Is it a confirmed Achilles injury?
Yeah,
though? I'm not sure it's confirmed. If you're telling me it was confirmed, okay. I'm not sure it was confirmed yet.
Well, I know it's not the same injury that he came in with, which is shocking because I'm now wondering if it could be at least related to the injury because, the MRI he had on last Tuesday, Jack, was ruled inconclusive for the hamstring, which is totally different part of the body. But I'm just wondering if he just didn't stretch properly or whatever. And now he has this other injury. When he went down, I couldn't even see. I didn't see where it was an injury, but sometimes it doesn't take a visible person to see, okay, this is clearly an injury. I just thought he went down and was clearly in pain. But the leaders, SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, only 29 points last night. Jalen Williams right behind him with 20. Chet Holmgren with 18 for the Thunder. Those were the top three. And for the Pacers, Mathurin leading the pack, 24 points, and led them off the bench. Of course, Siakam right behind him, even though he was named the MVP of the last series there, the finals. He was 16 points behind them. McConnell, 16 points. And then, of course, Halliburton only getting 9 early in the game because of his injury in the first quarter. He didn't play much at all. But I was shocked. Alex Caruso, only 2 points. Alex is normally one of their big hustlers for the Thunder, and he was not that visible last night, which still shows that the Pacers at least tried to show some type of defense.
Alex Caruso played a great game yesterday for the Thunder. What are you talking about, Sonia?
He wasn't one of the top 3 scorers.
It doesn't. You're sounding like my buddy Mac. You're not looking at shooting percentage, the amount of shots they take. Listen, the guy could take 100 shots and make 10 of them, and you'll say, well, he scored 20 points, and that's all you're going to mention. Okay, Caruso was outstanding yesterday. The way he played. I'm even looking here now. He was 4 for 10. It doesn't tell the story. The spark he gave the team coming off the bench. He was played a big part in the game yesterday. I mean, in the Thunder victory there.
10 tiny points yesterday.
No, what he did, the spark he gave the team, the way he'd be taking it to the basket, how he played defense, that doesn't show up in the box score when you're hounding, the ball, whoever has the ball, or you know, finding your way to get past the screen and disrupt the offensive flow of the other team. That's what he was doing yesterday. I mean, he played a really good game, Caruso. You could argue, he was the best player off the bench yesterday.
Oh, Jack, the best player off the bench. Maybe his hustle and drive. I don't agree with the best off the bench. That's a stretch for yesterday anyway. He's played some really good games in the series. I don't know about the best off the bench for yesterday, but I will respectfully just, digress on that one. Of course, now this championship we got to think about the fact, Jack, the Thunder rebuilt their team. And this is this is like the culmination of hard work that they worked on. The fact that everybody knew they were rebuilding here within the last couple of seasons, they put in what they needed to, and here they are being happily and handsomely rewarded for a historic season for their franchise.
Yeah, they were the best team during the regular season. So as them and the Cavaliers, actually. So, you could argue the best team won at the end. The Pacers just went on a great playoff run, and the Pacers had a great second half of the season. But, of course, you have to throw in the whole season to say who was the best team during the year. The talk now is, well, do the Thunder have a dynasty going? I mean, it's premature. I'm not going to get
Very
carried
immature.
away.
Oh my gosh.
I don't think so with all the parity in the NBA. If you're asking me, are the Thunder more likely in the next 4 years to win 2 NBA titles in the next 4 years, or win no NBA titles in the next 4 years? I'm going to guess no NBA titles if I had to make a comparison, okay? One or the other. If you ask me whether they'll win 1 title and no titles, I'll go with 1 title. It's so hard with the parity in the NBA for a team now to go on a run. I mean, just look at all the rosters. The Thunder aren't a dominant team. I know they won a lot of games during the regular season, but they're not a dominant team. And we saw that in the playoffs here. It took them 7 games to beat the Denver Nuggets. It took them 7 games to beat the Indiana Pacers. What does that tell you, Sonia? There's a very small margin between, winning a series and not winning a series. So if 2 teams could extend them to 7 games like that, teams are going to improve next year. I mean, just look at the West itself. I mean, and I know it's a segue with the Houston Rockets making the deal, getting Kevin Durant. There are other deals that are going to go down. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? Who knows where Giannis might wind up? I mean, and he absolutely would be a major difference maker to any team he winds up at, unless that team gives up so much that they'll be compromised even once they get him. But the Thunder would be favorites to win it next year, Sonia. They're favored to win it next year, but I'm not confident to say that they're a dynasty. They're head and shoulders above the other teams.
Yeah, I don't know. As I like to say, the verdict is still out on that one. That segues to our next thing. Yesterday, the same day as the game is about to kick off, in the middle of a Fanatics interview that Kevin Durant was sitting with Malika, fans were breaking the news. Kevin Durant did not even know he was on the stage in the middle of an interview. And he found out, the fans knew before him, that the Suns has officially traded Kevin Durant to the Houston Rockets for a blockbuster trade, Jack. Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, first-round picks. I mean, the number 10 pick in the 2025 draft and 5 second-round picks are all going to be for Kevin Durant. This is the first blockbuster trade for Phoenix general manager Brian Gregory. former college basketball coach who was promoted to his new role as part of the front office revamp that the Rockets just went through, the Suns just went through in May. And so after they missed the playoffs, despite having the highest payroll for this franchise, owner Matt Ishibia sent out the establish an organizational identity focused on toughness. And so with that came Durant being able to play for his fifth franchise, following his stints with the Seattle Supersonics / OKC Thunder, Golden State Warriors, Brooklyn Nets, Phoenix. Right. He has 1 year left on his contract at $54.7 million and is eligible this summer for a 2-year extension worth up to $122 million. The 15-time All-Star does turn 37 in September. And Green, of course, coming along with that trade, being 23, Brooks 29, vets that are highly sought after. And basically, Durant's future became clear after the season's trade deadline because they fought just to stay at 500 or even reach that. That's when they started looking into trading him. So this is one of the teams that Durant was highly interested in. A couple of days ago, it came out that they were no longer on the table, but it looks like something else occurred, and now they are, and Kevin Durant is officially a Houston Rocket.
Right. I think Durant was drafted by OKC. They weren't Seattle anymore. I mean, check if I'm wrong, but it was OKC.
Well, when I read it, ESPN has it both teams /, so they may have it wrong.
Okay, so. maybe I'm missing something, but I remember the number 2 overall pick in the draft, and he was drafted behind Greg Oden, the big center from Ohio State. And that was the mentality of teams at the time, not necessarily drafting the best player, but if a guy was a big man, a 7-footer, talented, you have to take him over a guy who's a little smaller. Not that Durant's small by any means. He's a pretty big guy himself. That's kind of ironic in a way. Had Durant wanted to spend his whole career at OKC, he could have. And he could have been part of yesterday's championship team. But of course, he wouldn't have gone to Golden State and won there. So who wants to second guess it? But the trade the Houston Rockets made the trade, I think, based on Coach Udaka's word. Because he had Durant with USA Basketball. He had him with the Brooklyn Nets when he was an assistant coach. There's clearly a very strong coach-player relationship there. And he urged the Rockets to go all in to get Durant. And Durant's 37 years old. Is he still pretty good? Yeah, he's darn good now. Is he long in the tooth? No, he's not quite long in the tooth. He's not the player he was, but he's not long in the tooth either. He's something in between. He's a heck of a good player, but age 37, what is Durant's window, Sonia? 2-3 more years where he could be a top level player in reality. So Houston's giving up so much to buy in. Jalen Green, a 23-year-old, number 2 overall pick in the draft himself. Has he been a little disappointing for Houston? A little bit, but he does have upside. And he was the type of player, Jalen Green, who you want to keep for years to come and just see him get better as you go along. And then there's Dillon Brooks, who's basically a bench player, but a very good bench player. His conduct is a little questionable at times. He's a bit of a dirty player, so on, his reputation. But he's an effective guy coming off the bench, who can help teams. And he's kicked around different places. And then you get the number 10 overall pick in the draft. And this is a deep draft, Sonia. So whoever you get at number 10, there's
still
a good
be
chance
good.
That's going to be a starter. That's going to be someone who can start for you in his first year. Chances are. So you have a chance to do something, get a really good player with that number 10 overall pick. And then there are 5 second-round draft choices, which are a bit of a crapshoot. It's hit and miss. But you're getting 5 of them. Chances are one of them is going to be really good. And you're doing that for a 2 to 3 year window with Kevin Durant. A 2 to 3 year window to try to win an NBA championship. It's a very bold move, okay, that you're making. If it doesn't work for Houston, they can regroup because Jalen Green hasn't shown himself to be a star yet, and Dylan Brooks, good bench play, expendable, and then you're losing the draft picks. So, you know, I saw what you said on ESPN. They graded both deals, and they graded it B plus for the Rockets, B for the Phoenix Suns. But I would reverse the grade. I think it's a little better deal for the Phoenix Suns. I would have made it if I was the Suns and they made it. Would I have made it if I was Houston? There's a big difference between Durant and Giannis at this stage. I think Giannis is one of the best players in the NBA, easily one of the top 10 players. Giannis is in the NBA. You could argue one of the top 5 players. Heck, if I told you Giannis was the best player in the NBA right now, you wouldn't laugh at me. You might disagree, but you wouldn't laugh at me for sure. But Kevin Durant, if I tell you he's one of the top 10 players in the NBA right now, I don't think he's a top 10 player anymore. He's more like a top 20 player now.
Yeah, so I looked while we were talking, the June 28th, 2007 draft, in which Kevin Durant was taken by the Seattle Supersonics. They were the Supersonics then, was held at Madison Square Garden, WAMU Theater, and he was the second drafted, like you guys, you said earlier, behind Greg Oden, but he was also Rookie of the Year that year, 2007, 2008. A lot has transpired in that time frame, and like you do mention, he's, eking towards that 40 mark. We don't have that many players in the league that are 40. And so I don't know. I kind of tend to agree that the Suns may have gotten the better end of the deal because they're getting a lot of players in this deal for a player that still has a lot left in the tank, but is not performing at his peak like he did. I think, in my opinion, he performed his best when he was with the Nets and when he was with the Warriors. I just feel like
OKC. No, Durant is a snap of the finger Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
What's Durant's legacy to this point? I mean, if you have, how many people would rate Durant ahead of Kobe Bryant?
Oh no, nobody.
No, but it's not laughable. It is pretty close in reality as far as how good each guy is. But Durant would not be rating, on a level with Kobe. If you ask most people, pick one or the other, Kobe would be just about a unanimous choice. No one's really going to pick Durant, which makes you kind of wonder about Durant's legacy because he is such a great, great player. But if he can win an NBA championship with the Houston Rockets, it's going to elevate him. It's going to elevate him on the short list of, the greatest of all time. We could start talking about him and then in the category of Bird, Magic, around that territory.
He's already ranked 8th among NBA greatest scorers. He's already in the top 10 for the most scorers in NBA history. Good morning, Rick. So it wouldn't take much for him to get that. And he just got named to the 75th All-Star team for the NBA, the 75th anniversary of the NBA. So he's still up there, Jack.
Players, he is up there. I'm talking about the short list. I'm not talking about the top 20 players of all time, because I think you get a bunch of experts and they compile a list of the top 20 players in NBA history. Durant makes that list. He won't make the top 10. He'll come in something like 17th. I'm just estimating, which is darn good. But if he wants to make the short list, to go from 17 to, let's say, number 7, win a championship at the Rockets, be a big star there. And the Rockets have some good personnel for him to work. He's coming to a good situation. And Houston is buying all in with Durant. But Durant's legacy, could go sideways too. Look what happened at Phoenix. When
Yeah.
Phoenix got Durant because they bought all in, thinking he could help them get an NBA championship. They came nowhere close. And last year they were absolutely awful,
Mhm.
awful with him last year. And and he had an outstanding player side by side with him in Devin Booker. Keep that in mind, and they didn't do anything.
I was kind of shocked they traded Devin Booker myself. I think he's
No,
a really
Devin Booker didn't get traded. Devin
no, I'm
Booker,
talking about in this deal with KD. He's gonna be there with him and Phoenix. He's part of this. Him and Jalen Green are part of this blockbuster trade-off between Phoenix and the Rockets.
no, Devin Booker, no, Devin Booker.
Dylan Dylan Brooks.
You
Sorry,
got Dylan and Devin.
you're making me.
Yes.
I'm mentioning
Yeah,
the
you got
wrong person.
tongue-tied.
Dylan
I know.
Brooks. I'm
I know.
surprised they traded
Yeah.
Dylan Brooks for this deal, Jack. That's who I meant to say. I'm wrong, DB.
Well, Dylan Brooks is expendable. He's a nice player. If he would just concentrate on the game and stop being a clown, out there and thinking he has to be a cheap imitation of Bill Laimbeer, try to intimidate guys, this and that. It's backfired on him. He actually has some ability, but it's kind of what it is with him. But he might help Phoenix. You look at Phoenix now, joining Devin Booker will be Jalen Green. Let's see how Jalen Green, whether he takes off, because he's going to be the number 2 option unless Bradley Beal is completely healthy and ready to be at the top of his game. But he's going to join their big 3 now. What happens if Phoenix improves a lot over last year with Jalen Green instead of Kevin Durant? He slots in and he plays alongside Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and a number 10 overall choice in the draft. Deep draft, as I said, if they hit upon a really good player who could be a starter, and now you've got Dylan Brooks on the bench who's going to help Phoenix. And then you could look forward to your 5 second-round draft choices, and maybe you luck out a little bit. When you get a good player, in reality, what is the second-round draft choice going to be? You're picking about the 45th best player in the draft on average. That's a bit of a stretch, but there's talent out there, and certain college players, they blossom. When they get older, they join the NBA, they take off. They're better than what they are in college, and we couldn't see that potential of that growth spurt that they have, not physically, but as players.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, I don't know. And just a little bit of update here, Jack, just to go back, because this is a breaking story out of CBS Sports related to the Tyrese Halliburton injury. They have basically confirmed it's an Achilles, and they're saying this could even be that it's in a fashion that it could possibly affect his career overall, Jack.
I feel
CBS Sports.
So much. My heart breaks for Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah, they said this is the most devastating injury in all of NBA history. Wow.
Oh my.
Wow. This is according to CBS Sports, guys. You guys can look that up. This just came out a couple minutes ago.
Even though I had issues with the conduct of the dad and Tyrese during the playoffs, like I said, it doesn't reflect on them as a person. It was just how they were acting.
Yeah.
A really good people, and something like this, my heart breaks from, especially with Tyrese going out there and giving it his all. He knew it was the championship game, and he just gave it his all. He gave it his all. And it's going to be it's obvious now it's going to be a long road back. Somehow, I don't know the medical things with the injury, this and that. As devastating as it is, I get the feeling too, he'll find his way back to the NBA. He absolutely will. It might take a couple of years.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah, Brent, that's correct. Rehab. But being the type of Warriors mentality that Tyrese Halliburton had on that court, giving it his all for his team, his franchise, his city. Okay. He'll find his way back. And he's going to have a lot of people just, rooting for him. And all Indiana's going to get behind him. And he didn't have to play yesterday, but, he knew a game
Yeah.
7 what was at stake. If this was a regular season and he had the injury he had, I doubt if he would have been playing.
Yeah,
But this is game 7, and how do you not play?
Yeah. I don't know, on my show Friday, and I think we even talked about it, Jack, when he was talking about the leg stiffness, everybody was like, well, it's the finals. He's definitely going to play. It's the finals. You got to play. And I kept saying, but if this is an injury that is worse than we thought, this could really, affect him. And sure enough, he comes out, he plays, he says he feels better through game 6. He does say that. But he talked about yesterday before the game, he was quoted as saying that his leg was still stiff, but he was going to play through it. So he still was complaining about this. And my theory was, I know it's the finals, Jack, but human element sometimes takes over. There's no amount of shots that they can give somebody that can get them through such a, his leg being stiff was an indicator that you were about to have look at Christian McCaffrey in the NFL. He's now coming back from both legs having issues because he's been back and forth with one or two legs or both now at this time. It's a progressive thing. And at some point, you just cannot over and circumvent Father Time, and you can't circumvent human nature. No matter how much medical technology there is, the body needs to rest and recover.
Yeah, it's easy, and I'm not criticizing you saying this, believe me.
It's easy for fans to say, I know.
Right. I'm not criticizing you at all, Sonia, by saying this, but it's easy to play Monday morning quarterback.
Yeah, that's true.
Sonia, it's game 7. The championship is on the line. I'm sure it was the player's decision. Let's think for 1 second. Tyrese Halliburton decided, I'm not going to play. I'm risking a serious injury. And let's say he didn't play. What would we be saying this morning after the Pacers lost? You go out there, all right, this is game 7.
That's true.
I mean, we would actually, I don't know about you and I, maybe even you and I, we might be a little critical of him. Remember that scene of Jay Cutler with the standing on the sideline.
Jay didn't give a darn, Jack. Jay Cutler did not care.
No, well,
his attitude, even when he was he would throw an interception and not even look. Bears fans know that, right, broski?
I'm giving an example here, just of any athlete. It's a game 7. If Halliburton was going to stay home, he was going to fly back to Indiana. He's going to want to root his team on because he's able to. He's going to want to be there. And if he's sitting on the bench, the time and how can he? I don't know what went on behind the scenes. That's the thing about it too. Did Halliburton, was he told of the risks? Okay. And then made his decision. I'm going to play. I don't give a darn. And you hope for the best. If it's game 7, do I allow a guy to go out there? I actually, if I'm the coach, I'm the organization, I leave it up to him. You want to go out there, you do it. If this is a regular season game, an early playoff round or whatever, I leave it alone. But this is the ultimate game, Sonia. The NBA Finals here, it's the ultimate game. It's up to the player to make that decision at the end, whether he wants to take the risks or not. And Tyrese, was he told of the risks of additional injury? He had to know he was under risk, because when you're playing with an injury, you can make it worse.
Right.
And he, and how can you tell him, sit him down and say, you're not playing? I don't give a darn. Your career is more important. You want the player to play, and you feel he could get through this.
Your bodies are now a sacrifice, basically. You earn the money. You have to be willing to sacrifice your health for the game. I get it. So That's what it
No,
really
no,
is.
but
It's
it's
out
a
of his
game
hands.
7. It's not just a game. This is in the
Right.
regular season. I would have shut him if it was a regular season. Listen, Sonia, if it was the beginning of the playoffs and he was that hurt, I would have shut him down for the whole playoffs if I had to.
Hmm.
But once you got to the point you got to, deep into the NBA
Oh.
finals, how do you shut him down? Then the player's got to shut himself down at that point.
Yeah, Rick's correct. People were already questioning, his heart being in the game and the extent of his injury, like whether or not it was that serious. I mean, we had a whole debate about it, not you and I, Jack, but not necessarily a debate, but everybody I guess sometimes I just feel like now he's at home with this injury. The series is over. Of course, the championship is over. Yes, this is not just a regular game. But while he's at home or wherever he is today in pain, the game is over. Everybody else is either cheering or, wallowing in their sorrows about losing. But he has to be the one to now heal from this injury. Only he can heal from this injury. Nobody else is going to be there. And in my opinion, no amount of money is worth a whole lot of pain when you can't do anything about the pain that is associated with these injuries. But I
know,
get it.
I hear you. But what Richard's saying is correct there. People would have questioned the injury more if he didn't play. Imagine he
Right.
didn't play yesterday. They would have said, okay, you risk straining your calf, hurting it, so on. But it's game 7, it's worth the risk. But no one thought the risks could be so great that it could be his whole career. But when the Knicks won that famous championship when Willis Reed came hobbling out, for game 7 against the Lakers, no one knew whether Willis was going to play. He had his leg injury and he made a dramatic entrance in the time, coming out onto the court during the warm-ups. No one knew at that point until the last moment that he was, he was shot up with Novocaine. He would play, and he went limping out there. But as Coach Red Holtzman said, if the injury threatens his career, he's not going to play. But that's easy for a coach to say. The player's got to make the decision. Kevin Durant hurt his Achilles, in the playoff series in the finals against Toronto, had been hurt before.
I will bring up the key example. Thomas Davis, my former linebacker of the Carolina Panthers, broke his arm in the NFC Championship game against the Cardinals. Had to have a plate 11 to 12 screws into his arm during surgery and got a customized sleeve, Jack, to wear to play in the Super Bowl, even though he had just had surgery less than 2 weeks before. And he still played in the game with this customized sleeve, which was one of the big stories of the Super Bowl. The fact that he had a broken arm and he knew he still wanted to play in the Super Bowl, and he played. And they talked about, this was, I remember the stitches looked like a football. They were showing pictures of it, how the stitches themselves were in the shape of a football. It was super cute. But the fact that he had overcame 3 torn ACLs earlier and the surgery itself to come out on the field, suit up, and even had 7 tackles, Jack, during the game. He was still tackling people with a broken arm during the biggest game. So I definitely get the other side of the story. So, congratulations again to the Thunder. They got it done.
You make a great point, Sonia. It's a Super Bowl, though. That's why he was out there. It depends how big the event is. There was a great hurdler by the name of Greg Foster, 110-meter hurdler, who won the world championships in hurdling 110 meters in track and field. He won in 83, 87, in 1991. But in 1984, he won a silver medal in the Olympics, got upset. Now it's the 1988 Olympics, and he kind of had a broken arm. But he was allowed to run and compete in the Olympic, trials beforehand. but he was told by the physicians, okay, don't fall on your arm no matter what. So he
Mm-hmm.
tried to run in the heats, but he kind of backed off at that point. But with Halliburton, he made a quick, decisive move. Our heart goes out to him. We wish
Yeah, we
him, a quick recovery. And now I never thought I'd be saying this. I've become a Tyrese Halliburton fan. I'm a fan of his now.
the fact that
Rooting hard
the fact that he played through it.
that he played. I'm a fan now, and I'm
Yeah,
rooting hard for him to
and his
overcome
injury
this.
here.
And I think he will. It might, but it's going to be a long, tough road. And like you said, Sonia, he's going to have to endure it alone, all that rehab and all those things, and you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So with that, as we get ready to wrap up here, we got about 8 or 9 minutes to talk about this, Jack. Giannis now, of course, still the next big trade talk that's coming around. Right after Durant was traded, Giannis has been back and forth. He wants to win now. Of course, he's talked about being loyal with the Bucks, but he's also now talked about he literally was quoted as saying after the Durant trade, speculating some people to think that maybe his names are still out there amongst being traded next. What are your thoughts?
The Bucks have done everything to accommodate Giannis, and Giannis is an NBA champion. It's not like he has to win an NBA title. He has won one before. Obviously, part of the fun of playing basketball, you want to enjoy your job, and if you're not winning, you don't enjoy it. But the
Yep.
Bucks are constantly making moves to accommodate Giannis and to stay relevant. Look, they made that major impact Damian Lillard move, but they're not going to win the championship with Lillard and Giannis. And Lillard has his injury he has to overcome that's going to carry over into next year, too. They're not winning at Milwaukee. It's that simple. And Giannis's value is high right now. I mean, if the Bucks wait to trade him late on, his value isn't going to be higher than it is now. And Giannis is the type of player who's a major difference maker. Any team that gets him is getting one of the best players in the NBA. I mean, maybe Giannis could be traded a star for star, but even if Milwaukee gets another star instead of Giannis, what's the difference? They're not going to be any better. So
Well, I
Milwaukee,
mean,
can they get a big draft haul? Listen, the deal for Durant, Milwaukee's got to get a heck of a lot more than what Phoenix got for Giannis. Giannis is 30 years old. He's got a lot more time than Durant, a lot more good years left. And he's a better player at this point, even though Durant is a very good player at this point, very good to outstanding. Giannis is still outstanding to great. That's the difference. And who can afford what for Giannis? He's been linked to the Knicks. What can the Knicks give for Giannis if we're thinking? I mean, can they put together a package? They're not going to give him, they're not going to trade Jalen Brunson, but can Mitch Robinson, Josh Hart, the Knicks' number 1 pick, Landry Shepard, I just don't see what they can give. That wouldn't be acceptable to Milwaukee.
well, they've talked about actually building around him. I mean, Doc Rivers has come out and said the trade rumors are ridiculous. And Giannis actually wants to stay, there, but he just needs them to win. Like you said, his former teammate Bobby Portis thought that maybe, he was super loyal to the city and the franchise. And so he felt like that they could build around him. I mean, like you mentioned earlier in the show, Jack, there's a huge draft coming up that is really saturated, but I just don't know what they would get. Of course, teams have been definitely looking at him. I mean, there's some teams suggesting like the Lakers, the Warriors, or even the Pacers after the recent playoff series. You just have to kind of look. Even the Jazz and Thunder have been amongst those trade speculations.
Why would Giannis want to go to the Utah Jazz? I mean, it doesn't make sense. He'd only want to go somewhere they can win. I mean, give me a break. The Utah Jazz. You know what's the crazy thing about it? The team that actually could have a chance to get Giannis would
Mhm.
be, the Oklahoma City Thunder. They've got so much draft capital. And if they wanted to make a bold move and threw in Jalen Williams in that deal too, even coming off an NBA championship, they're not going to trade SGA and they're not going to
No,
trade Holmgren.
no.
That would make
Right.
sense. Holmgren is too good defensively. No way you trade him in any Giannis deal. You just don't. He means too much to the chemistry and style of the team. And obviously, SGA isn't even going to be talked about. But, Williams could go conceivably, and a bunch of draft choices. So imagine they give him, like, they have some like six number one draft choices. Imagine Jalen Williams, six number one draft choices, and maybe Caruso to get Giannis. Can
Ooh.
you imagine? But okay, but even then, if you're OKC, you've got to be nervous. You're the NBA champions. You get Giannis, you don't win it next year. Are you affecting the chemistry? Even though Giannis is a team player, you don't know how you're affecting the chemistry, how he's going to work along with SGA. You just don't know. SGA's the man in, OKC. Giannis isn't going to come to be the Robin of any team. He's got to be, really the Batman in reality because he's still got a. Giannis is in the prime of his career. He hasn't slowed down at all.
Yeah, and Rick says he's a winner that you agree with one of his points for today. So he was super appreciative of that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Of course, this is kind of like I don't know, a fork in the road. Does he continue on with his team now, or does he go the other way? And no one is saying anything. It's kind of like a back and forth, and then all of a sudden it'll just be okay. Here it is, breaking news, explosive. He's signed, he's traded, blah blah blah, and we'll all be like, okay, for what? You have somebody like Giannis will command, Jack, and I'm really reluctant to use that word, but it's really appropriate here. They will command a really big blockbuster trade because Giannis is an outstanding player. But at the same time, some of the names you mentioned, they are in their own rights just as blockbuster with their own teams. There's no way you get rid of Jalen with some of these, these other players that you mentioned. So like I always like to say, the verdict is still out. You agree?
I would trade Jalen Williams for Giannis in a snap
You
of a
would?
finger. I appreciate they delivered a champ. Giannis is better. He's clearly better, head and shoulders better. No put down of any other players. Giannis is arguably the best player in the NBA. Arguably, okay? Right now. And if you have a chance to get a guy who might be the best player in the NBA, you do everything you can to get him. Getting Giannis is like getting Jokic from Denver. I mean, come on. I mean, how do you bypass something like that? But it depends what you have to give up. Most teams don't have enough to give to Milwaukee. If I'm Milwaukee, I allow Giannis to be part of the process. I have him in the draft room the night of the draft. I say, these are the players, Giannis. How about you study tape with us? Who do you think we should take? Who could help you out? You make Giannis feel like this is his team. He's gonna stick with them the whole way. He said Milwaukee's a city, but Giannis doesn't want to go into next season thinking there's no way we could win an NBA championship. It's hard to go to work when you think there's no way you're winning an NBA championship.
Absolutely. And of course, now we got the NBA draft coming up here on Wednesday and Thursday. Number one draft prospect Cooper Flagg to the Dallas Mavericks has been a projected stopping point for him. That's going to be big coming up here, Jack.
Oh, it's obvious Cooper Flagg goes number one. We'll see where certain players like Ace Bailey from Rutgers go. He refused to work out for the 76ers.
Yeah, I saw that.
He's trying to create a narrative where he wants to go. Like he'll want to go to the Wizards and Nets where he could be a star there. Let's see where he gets drafted. I think he's still going to go to the Sixers. They're going to say, okay, you don't want to work out for us. We're going to draft you anyway.
Absolutely. Draft, of course, coming up Wednesday evening. And Jack, always a great show. Everyone, we wish you a great day. Of course, stay tuned to the network shows throughout the day here on YouTube, National Streaming Sports, and our Roku affiliate. Everyone, have a great day. And good luck to your team in the draft.
7 p.m. Eastern time. If you like boxing, turn to Glove Fist. I'm back with Frank Laterzo tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern time.
And a special guest, Mr. Sean Nam. So can't wait to have him on as well.